Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Bethany and I'm so happy that you're here today to talk with me about the books that I've read so far in the month of March. So first, for my wrap-up video, I want to feature this one picture book, Miriam at the River by Jane Yolen, illustrated by Koa Lee. This book is about Moses' sister Miriam, and it's just told from her perspective on Moses being sent in the basket in the river. And the illustrations in this are just beautiful. You can probably tell by the cover, but it's just wonderful. I love it so much, and that's probably that was my favorite thing. That's what drew me to it, and it's just a sweet story, short and sweet, but just absolutely beautiful. So I definitely recommend this one for your kids. So now I'm going to jump right into what I have been reading so far in the month of March, and I have a pretty good stack here. It is middle grade March, so most of them are middle grade. I do have 2 adult ones that I'll start with, and then I'll move right into the middle grades. It has been so much fun reading middle grade, and I've just been reading really great ones for the most part. So I will start though with my adult fiction. So I just finished River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer today, like a few hours before I'm doing this video. I read the end of it and it is just so good. I told you in my last video that I'm struggling with stars and how to rate books, but I'm trying. So I did write down some this month, and I believe that this is a 5-star for me. It is a historical fiction following a girl named Rachel who had been enslaved, and then the Emancipation Act happened. She's in the Caribbean, and so they announced that they were free, but then they had to do apprenticeships, so they really weren't free. She decided though to go ahead and flee and run from her where she was enslaved, and to go try to find her children. She had children while she was enslaved who were taken from her and sold, and she wasn't sure where they were, so she is just on a mission to find them. And it was beautiful, and it was a really good story. I did mark some things in it, and I feel like this isn't a spoiler because you're gonna have to understand that surely she's gonna find one of her kids at least going into this, or it would just be terrible. So anyway, this is just something that I flagged because I just thought the way it was written was so beautiful. So it said, "They embraced, and she felt like water pouring into every crevice of Rachel, filling her, quenching her thirst." And that's just a little peek into some of the writing and the descriptions on things that happened, and that was the reunion. And I just felt just so impacted by that as a mother through the whole book, but like that moment and the way that she described that feeling of being reconnected with her child, I just thought was beautiful. And so the other flag I had in here, it was actually from the author's note. So this is her in the author's words. It says, "This is a story that does not shy away from the brutality of slavery, but that ultimately still has something uplifting at its heart." And that is just so true. It was so full of hope, and I loved the people that Rachel encountered through her journey. I loved the river, the part that the river played in nature, but just everyone that she encountered, it was just so full of hope. Like, even though it was such a heavy topic, I loved that about it. I really loved it. It did not, even though it was heavy, it did not weigh me down. It just felt like it was just told really beautifully. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm glad that I read it. Okay, the next one that I read is Plot Twist by Bethany Turner. This is much more lighthearted, and I had never read anything from Bethany Turner and kind of just picked it up because of her name, honestly. I'm gonna give it a 4-star, but I will say that this book like completely captivated me. I'm pretty sure I finished it in 24 hours, and even though it's audio, that's pretty unusual. I have like certain times of my day kind of where I like to listen to audiobooks, and then I have certain times of my day where I spend reading physical books. And this book had me just all audio. Like I was laying in bed with my headphones in, just listening to this book because I wanted to know what happened. It's following a girl. I've already forgotten her name. Anyway, follows a girl who meets a man in a coffee shop one day. She's 30 years old, and she is aspiring to be a screenwriter, and he is an aspiring actor. And so they kind of have some chemistry, but they leave, and he's like, he tells her, why don't we meet back here in 10 years at this coffee shop, and you can write a movie for me and I'll be the actor for it, I guess. Anyway, so this follows that exact day in her life over the next 10 years until she's 40. Anyway, so you get to kind of see if she decides to go back and if he'll be there. But so much happens in those 10 years in her life and in her love life. And so I think what I loved about it is I had no idea what she was going to do. I had no idea like who she was going to like choose, because there's some other people in her life, obviously over 10 years. And I had no idea. I had no idea who I wanted her to be with. So I think that's what kind of kept me, like I couldn't put it down. So I finished it really quickly. And so there wasn't a lot to it. Like I said, it was very lighthearted, but it was good and had me wanting to finish it. All right, so now we're going to get right into the middle grade books that I read so far, and I'm going to try to do these in order from how I felt about them. So the first one, if you watched my TBR video, I was planning on reading Izzy at the End of the World, and I'm forgetting the author right now. But anyway, I did start that on audio and DNF'd it. It just had some stuff in it that I'm not really interested in reading, especially in children's fiction, and so I just decided to stop it. I have a big list, and so I did not want to waste my time on something that I didn't care for. So it was very fast-paced. It did, in her defense, the author did have several trigger warnings at the beginning, so I would definitely keep that in mind. Also maybe preview it if I was going to give it to my child, which I am not, but if you were, I would preview it. And yeah, it felt also definitely like upper middle grade. So anyway, that was a DNF for me. But the rest have been really great. So I'm going to start with Sweet Home Alaska by Carol Espy Dagg. This is one that I chose for the sky on the cover. This is a historical fiction following a girl named Terpsichore and her family who, as part of the government program during the Depression, moved to Alaska with other families to this town called Palmer, which is an actual town, and this actually happened, where there was a program sending families there to try to cultivate the land and just kind of start over there. And so this is just following Terpsichore, and she wants to start a library, and so her and her friends kind of trying to figure out how to do that, how to raise money, how to get books sent to them up there and start a library in their little community. And it was really good. I went back and forth between 3 and 4 stars on this one because it could be kind of boring at times for me, but overall it was a good story. The next one is All of a Kind Family by Sydney Taylor. I don't know if this is considered a classic. It's very, I'm sure it is, 1951. So this is following a family with 5 daughters, and it's a Jewish family. There's a lot of Jewish tradition things in here. They're in, I believe, New York City at the turn of the century. So this I did as a read aloud to my 6-year-old, and he really liked it. I was kind of surprised. We were kind of into it for a little while, and there wasn't a lot going on, just kind of day-to-day things in their lives. And so I wasn't sure if he was that interested in it. So I asked him, and he said, yeah, let's keep going. So he really liked it, and I thought it was a good, wholesome story. I liked the parents and the girls and kind of the troubles that they went through, or the responsibilities that they had. You know, they didn't have a lot of money, so just like saving up for things, the experiences that they had. I think I'm gonna give this a 3-star for me. It was okay. I don't know. It was good. I'm glad we read it. Okay, so the next one I'm going to go over is The Doll in the Garden by Mary Downing Hahn. And I listened to this one. It's a very short book. And this is the one I talked about in my TBR video that I recognized the name from my childhood. And so I'm thinking that it was 3rd grade, and that my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Ramey, read this aloud to us. I don't know that for sure, but I just kind of have a feeling. I remember a lot of great books from Mrs. Ramey's class. So to all the teachers out there, like, that's just such a memorable thing. At least it was for me. I think it's a beautiful way to teach kids, and I'm just so thankful that I had teachers that read chapter books aloud to us. So if you're a teacher and you're doing that, just know that you're making a difference. It was really good. It is a ghost story. I'm not a fan of horror or scary things, but it was a really sweet ghost story, and it had like some mystery and some scariness to it, but the overall theme and message of the book was so good. Like, I could see why my teacher picked that out to read to us back then. So it did have some topics of like parent loss and grief, and yeah, that one was a 4-star for me. I also loved how, as I was listening to it, I could kind of remember what was going to happen. Like, I didn't remember much about it at first, but then as I was listening, I could kind of see a little bit ahead because it was coming back in my memory. So the next one is The Lion of Mars by Jennifer L. Holm, and I read this one for the sci-fi prompt for middle grade March, and it was really good. I gave it a 4-star. It is about a boy named Bell, and he has grown up on Mars with kind of a found family, which I didn't know that going into it, but that's kind of what it was. So anyway, it was a neat story about life on Mars, and just kind of about community, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like I can't say much about it without giving too much away. I did flag one part that I wanted to share because I just love it. I thought it was really a good thing for kids. So this is Bell speaking. He said, "But he was wrong. I hadn't been brave. I almost gave up. I was scared the whole time," I confessed. His eyes met mine and he nodded. "That's what bravery feels like," he said. So I loved that. Belle definitely had some adventures and had to be brave. There was a sickness that happened in their colony on Mars, and it was only affecting the adults, so the kids kind of had to take some responsibility and do some things and try to get them help. And so that was really fun, and it was neat to see Belle kind of be brave and do some things to help his colony. So this one also dealt with grief and loss, and I think did well with that too, so that's in there. This was a good one. I would definitely recommend it. Okay, I'm going to end with my 2 5-star middle grade books. So I did have 2, very exciting. The first one is Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayeri, and this is a nonfiction memoir. This is about about Daniel, the author, told from his perspective from when he was young. I don't know exactly what age. It felt like maybe at the end of grade school or middle school, but I'm not completely sure So it's told from his perspective at that point, but it's jumping to his childhood a lot and just kind of going back and forth, just working through his memories. And I really enjoyed how that was told, and how he was saying, like, you know, I'm just kind of grasping at these memories from my childhood. I don't have the whole picture, like none of us do. We just have memories that we're trying to recall and hold on to. And so it was about his family and stories he was told, and his history and everything. So he and his mom and sister fled Iran and moved to actually Oklahoma, which is where I live. So I didn't know that that part was in it, and that was really cool. And I don't know, like his story, he just told it really well, and he told it very well for his audience, I feel like. So I definitely recommended it to my teenage son in middle school. And there is a lot of like bathroom stories, like a lot. I mean, and but I feel like he knew his audience. Like if you're he was a teenage boy, if he's talking to teenage boys, if that's who's going to be reading it, then but there was so much in it also, like just good lessons and history and culture, and just so much in it that yeah, I feel like it was just done really well. He did a very good job, and I really enjoyed it, but I know that my son would also really enjoy it and not be bored by it or anything like that. So I wouldn't read it to my 6-year-old, but I definitely think it was just, it's perfect for middle grade. The last one I'm going to talk about is another 5-star middle grade for me, and this is A Night Divided by Jennifer A. Nielsen. And this is a historical fiction set in Berlin, the time that the Berlin Wall went up. And this girl, her family was divided by the wall. Her dad and one of her brothers was on the other side visiting, and then the wall went up, and so they could not come back. They could not be reunited. And so it was her and her mom and her other brother who were left. I think this was her first historical fiction. I think she maybe wrote middle grade fantasy before this. I'm not 100% sure, but she did such a good job with this historical fiction. The mom in this, I felt like I loved her perspective. She just wanted to live their lives and be safe and not cause any trouble. And the main protagonist, the girl, she definitely was more like her dad and wanted to, you know, fight for what was right and fight for freedom, and did not want to live under that control. I did flag something in this one. Okay, so this is between Gerda is our main character and her brother. And he said, "Some of what the state teaches is important," Fritz said tiredly. "We do have a responsibility to be good citizens, even if we are rebelling against some of their laws, maybe even their biggest law right now. That doesn't mean we can rebel against everything that is right. They are also telling the truth when they say that there are people in the West who will take advantage of others for their own profit. Some people use capitalism to help themselves and let the rest suffer for it." You know, he wasn't advocating to stay under communism or to, you know, he didn't want to be there either. But I think he was just trying to show her that, you know, everything is not perfect over there on the other side of the wall. And there are hard parts about that too. So, you know, with freedom comes more responsibility, and also allows other people the freedom to take advantage of other people. So I just thought I was like, wow, that's great for a middle grade book. I just think she did such a great job, and she has quite a few other historical fiction now that I will read and probably want my kids to read, because this was so good and told in a really compelling way. So I am a big fan of Jennifer A. Nielsen's historical fiction, for sure. All right, so those are the books that I've read so far this month, and I am still working through my TBR pile. I feel like I've done a really good job actually reading what's on my TBR, and so I'm looking forward to continuing that and sharing those with you at the end of the month. So I hope you come back for that video, and I hope you have a great week.